Festiie fam, the time is now. Festival goers unite. Welcome to the Festiie Files podcast, where we highlight the creative and inspiring individuals who collectively come together and bring to life the festival experience. So whether you just attend festivals and you dance in the crowd as if no one's watching, whether you're backstage having a blast watching the performer, could be the DJ or a dancer on stage, do their thing. Whether you're a vendor at the event, whether you're, just wishing, closing your eyes and envisioning yourself at a festival, as most of us are now, you each contribute to the festival experience, and every single piece is important. See, we got a dancer over here. I love the vibe. So my name is Desmond Beristain, CEO of Festiie, the Festival Smart Band. And yeah, today, let's get in it. It's all about keeping that positive vibe, keeping that festive spirit alive right now. And as a community, it's our job to do that and our responsibility. And we all should be stepping into that role and playing our part. So with this podcast, we have a guest today. She truly encompasses so many elements of the festival culture. Like, as I'm giving her this intro, she's like rooting me on, and already the vibe is there. She has super colorful outfits. Obviously, she got the hairstyles on point. You know what I mean? Innovation. She got the candy. You might have even seen her shuffling videos. She's even doing the shuffling videos and showing you how to shuffle. And of course, most importantly, she's staying true and being her most authentic self. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome SUNFLOWERRAVER, aka the Rave Child. Welcome to the Festiie Files podcast.
Hello. I'm really happy to be here.
Likewise, we're glad to have you here, and yeah, let's get right into it. So how have you been during these times? Obviously we'd love to be at events, but we're at home right now. You definitely have the festive spirit going, so talk about that and how you've been coping.
I've been mainly, what's been helping me the most is just like getting dressed up at home, whether it's for a live stream that's happening or just because I feel like it. I find that that's been helping me quite a bit because, I'm in Seattle, so we were a hot spot for quite a while, and I think we still do have quite a number of cases here. So we haven't been able to do anything. Like, I know a lot of states have opened up and have had drive-in raves and everything, and we haven't been able to have something like that. Drive-in raves still make me feel kind of iffy about it, but I think the effort's there, and it's just what's making me feel a lot better is seeing the EDM community come together more. I think out of every kind of genre of music, the EDM community really is the community that's been prevailing through this entire pandemic and keeping our spirit alive. You still see us out here supporting our artists and their new releases of either merch or if they're dropping a new song, which I think is super important. You don't really see that much with I haven't seen one pop artist do something like that, or one more mainstream kind of radio artist that's been doing something like that. And so I think that's been really helping the EDM community and just continuing to post and create content, even though we're not exactly at a rave. We're still inspiring people, which is really awesome. And even bringing people into maybe trying a new flow. One of the things that I've been trying to tell people is that right now, since there's nothing going on, you have all the time in the world to learn how to use poi, or maybe you finally this is your time to learn how to glove, kind of thing. For me, it was actually putting more thought into shuffling and getting better at that. So, which I think is a pretty good improvement, but it's a great time to do it because it's not you feel you have any time constraints for a festival right now. You just have practice and the world at your fingertips, which is great. So
sure. And you just said it's finding mindful acts to try to immerse yourself in during these times. So if you have, for example, I got the DJ set up behind me. All right, I'm going to start mixing. I'm going to start practicing. I'm going to start making mistakes. Okay, that's the only way I'm going to make progress. Shuffling, anything, like you said, koi, pick up different flow things, look into things, just spend some time answering questions or looking into the answers for yourself, looking into things for yourself, because that's where it starts, right? We're literally in this period of self-reflection And in order for myself to give off that positive vibe to somebody else, I have to make sure that I've checked in. You know, okay, hey, how am I feeling today? Okay, I'm feeling good. I'm glad I'm feeling good. Let me go see how someone else is feeling now. And if they're not feeling as great, hopefully I can be a little sun ray in their life, at least, you know, at least for the moment, for a little half a smile, something. And that's really what peace, love, unity, and respect is about. And that's what this culture is about. Talk about the importance of the culture, and how it's had so much of a prolific influence on your day-to-day life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the EDM community does a really great job of that. And just especially like with like checking in on each other and making sure that we're all doing okay. And I think that's really awesome. I know a lot of people are kind of torn on the whole like event thing that's been happening, like with drive and raves. Like it's something that I'm torn on. And then even seeing like some like Ubby Dubby Gets Freaky Deaky is one of the ones that's still supposed to happen. And I know I did a Twitter poll and I asked people, I'm like, you know, would you go to an event right now? And it's like, it's a split. Like people are like, yeah, I'd want to go. Or people are like, yeah, I don't want to go. But, you know, it's kind of confusing. But I think either way, like people are still like trying their best to show Plur and to be like a part of this community and keep it going through this time. Because, you know, the last thing that we would want, you know, is in like 2021 when festival season does come back, it's like small and it's like failing because there's not enough like revenue that like the artist can make or event goers, you know, the event holders, you know, would make kind of things. So trying the new things and keeping it going is always kind of like, what do we do?
Oh, for sure. Even on this side of things, you know, us pushing out this product and really having conversations with event organizers, having conversations with festival goers, our fellow festival goers, and looking at, okay, peace of mind is now very important when, if we're even going to think about going back to festivals, and being able to still, right, make ends meet if you are throwing the event, because you're throwing an event if it's, you're losing money. So there's so much, there's a business side of things, but then there also is that pure essence of passion and understanding and going to an event. It's going to be really interesting because now I think people going to the events, we're not there yet. Like you said, it's a split right now.
Yeah.
Like, even though if an event were to open up, people are a little hesitant. We need to get it to the level where people aren't feeling hesitant anymore. People are like, you know what, it's time. But we are ways away from that. And that's kind of the brutal truth, because we don't want to go back and then have them say, all right, well, you got to go back to festivals for 1 month. Now you have to miss it for another year. We'd rather let's take care of it now. Let's assess what we have to do on one side of things, from just being able to get people to events, but then let's assess what we can do as a culture, as festival goers, to elevate the experience, whether it be, you know, I say this every podcast, make sure we're throwing away our trash. I mean, what good is it? We're talking about we miss festivals and then we go back and we just trash the place. You know, what good is it if, we're not looking out for others at the event? We really got to keep that culture and keep that in our hearts during these times.
Yeah. Like, I think, you know, a lot of people expect, especially like the larger festivals, like big camping festivals. Like when I went to Shambhala last year, and it was an amazing experience. And one of the things that like my campsite really focused on was taking everything out with us that we took in, especially like garbage wise. And of course, like they have like garbage bins and everything where you can like throw stuff and whatnot. Like even throughout the festival, they had certain garbage cans where you could throw your light sticks in. And or glow sticks, sorry, because those kind of, they do weird things to the trash, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not an environmentalist, but they had like separate things for that, which is really great. But still, even after Shambhala, even though the values that they hold as the festival themselves of keeping like that space really clean, there's still a lot of people that just leave a bunch of crap there. And so they have a big cleanup crew that's filled with volunteers who went to the festival to help clean up afterwards. So it's still a nice, safe, and like really great place. And so like that's what I think is amazing about the EDM community, especially when you have just like people who aren't like not necessarily getting paid. I mean, if you're volunteering for Shambhala, you get a ticket, essentially. So you are getting paid for your work in the sense that you get to enjoy the festival, but you also get to give back to that festival, which I think is really great. Now, it'd be nice if we didn't need those people because people just cleaned up after themselves entirely. But at the same time, I can understand, like, after a 7-day long festival, you may forget where you took your chair out in the middle of the forest and you don't remember where you put it.
Yeah.
So,
Chair
which,
is one. I think chair is one thing, picking up a bottle or putting it down and throwing it on the floor or dancing and then stepping on a bottle is another, and I feel like we all have that within us where would you just do that, you know, in your room? I mean, the
yeah,
festival is our sanctuary. Would we do that in our sanctuary? Just throw stuff around? So yeah, and these are all things that, pandemic or not, we constantly need to assess. Like if you're at a festival and you see somebody alone and they don't look like they're having a good time, how do you approach them? Are you going to just, go up to them and that whole thing? If you see somebody, honestly, somebody being harassed, what are you going to say? How are you going to go about it? How are you going to, maybe if they're not part of your group, but you see something happening, you might say, hey, oh, hey, and bring them into your group, escort them. I mean, you're even as a female, maybe you could even speak about that more so in depth, because these are all the things. And I feel like right now, as the country, we're talking about things. As a festival culture, we should talk about things if we really care about making the festivals a better place for ourselves, for the next wave of festival goers too.
yeah, I think like the entire festival scene, like we need to push forward that like feeling of care more. Like I look at like the US EDM scene, and I would kind of peg us as one of the most like accepting and loving communities out there with festivals, especially with like some of like the ravers that I've talked to from like the United Kingdom. Things are a lot different over there, and while they have like similar aspects, it's not really, it's like two different cultures. And so like comparing them from like what I've gathered from other people and like what I've learned is that like the US seems to care more about what everyone's doing there and how to take care of people, whereas at like the UK everyone's like it's a free for all. We don't really care too much about like other people unless there are like close friends. Like you don't really like outstretch that besides your own group. Whereas like in the US, like that's something that you do because we really do like follow Plur quite a bit. And a lot of people, I heard this like a couple of years ago, but a lot of people were saying like Plur's dying, like candy trading's dying, like it's not part of the culture anymore. Well, and I was like, well, if you keep pushing that narrative, then yeah, it is going to die. But every time I go to a festival, I'm bringing like 80 singles with me and like, 15 different cuffs. And by the end of the festival, they're all gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I don't think it's dying. I think that you're showing up to a rave with nothing to trade or like nothing to make friends with, and then you complain it's not there. It's like, well, if you want the scene to give you something, you have to give it something first. And that's where, the Plur comes in. So if you're going in with expectations like, oh, like this is going to be amazing and I'm going to make so many friends and, I get to trade all the time, then you're going to have a really good time. But if you're going in there with like, oh, like everyone better be nice to me, otherwise I'm not going to be nice to them. It's like, that's not how it works. Like,
Yeah.
it's a big thing, like with respect, like you can't expect respect unless you give it. And
Yeah.
I think the entire US really needs that right now, because a lot of people, especially like facing this pandemic, like not a lot of people are respecting each other or like what's happening. Like you see the numbers dropping in other countries around the world because the people there have a lot more respect for other people and they care about other people. Whereas in the US, it's like that free for all kind of mind state. Right. And so, the US needs some Plur. Like, not like, EDM scene has it, of course, but the rest of the country does really need it. And it's kind of like scary to see all of these things happening in 2020, like people refusing to wear masks, people saying things like, all lives matter. And it's like, well, you don't understand. Like, that's not the point here. Like, you're wearing a mask to protect other people, and we're saying Black Lives Matter because we need to protect these people, because as a white person, you're already protected. Like, as somebody who already had COVID, sure, you're already protected against the virus, as maybe not, maybe there's a new strain, we don't know, but it's about protecting the people who aren't and helping them. And a lot of people don't get that.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. You're right. Just adding on to that, it's so what has to happen, in my opinion, is we need conversation. We need to be able to speak to each other, and how you mentioned it, respectfully. Even if you don't understand what the other person's saying, well, how about hear them out? And too much are we getting so enraged and emotion, and it's easier said than done, because some of the acts that we're seeing are literally emotion triggering acts. But we need to start by talking. We need to start by having the people with the strength step up too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone take a step. Like, hey, you know, if, for example, if I'm not usually, I have friends that started going to some of the protests and doing that, you know, but then also saying, hey, it doesn't stop there though. You don't go home and say, okay, that's it. You know, like, no, dude. And I've also said that. I said, I don't, for myself, when if I go to protest, I go home, what is it? Like, all right, what, am I going to take off my skin? You know, no. That's just the beginning. That's the beginning of awareness. Now we need to keep going, have platforms where people are able to speak. And honestly, if they have different points of emphasis, to find a way to say, you know what, I can see why you're saying that. Oh, I can see why you're saying that. Typically, you know, the line, and we're constantly going to have to assess where that line is. That's the thing. And for us, that's the challenge. But as you mentioned it, if we can make it work using a small sample size, and it's not even that small, the US festival scene, which is like 32 million people a year, then we can transfer that. Why not show, hey, now let's make the nation a festival in that regard and use what we've learned. So, yeah, I mean, let's bring it back to the festival.
Yeah.
That first festival experience, because you clearly encompass it all. Obviously, it must have had a super imprint on you. So talk about, what was your first festival and why did you decide to just, you know, keep going back to festivals?
Well, when I first heard of like raves and whatnot, it was from my sister, and she's 2 years older than me, so she's been raving for a lot longer than I have. She started going to them in high school, and I always made fun of her for them because I was under the impression that the only reason why people go to raves is so that they can dress very revealing and then do a lot of substances or just get really messed up and go to a place that plays really weird music. I was like never really into EDM when I was younger. And by the time that I had turned 18, my friend had an extra ticket for an event in Vancouver where I was living at the time, and it was called Life in Color. And he was like, we should surprise your sister with you coming with us to the event because it would make her like really happy. Like, she's wanted you to come for so long and you just need to try it. And I was like, no, like, I don't want to go. Like, it sounds stupid. Like, the only person I had heard of on the lineup was Knife Party. And so I was like, I don't want to go. Like I know one song by Knife Party, which was Internet Friends. And he was like, no, just come. And so we ended up going, and I had like an amazing time. And I know Life in Color was a lot of people's like first festival, and I think it's like a really great intro festival because it's just something that people go for fun, and they spray paint at you. So it's like, I think it was a really good introduction festival in my opinion. But I had a really good time, and I ended up seeing actually a lot of people from like high school and from university at the time that I knew that were already there, and it just felt like really welcoming because I saw a lot of familiar faces, but then also the group that I went with, like, it was just so much fun. Mm-hmm. And from then I was like, okay, well, I want to go to more of these things, and I want to keep going to these things because I realized it was a lot more than just like, you know, dressing up. It's a lot more than like, you know, doing things. Like, if you want to do things, you can do things. You don't have to.
Yeah.
And it was about like the community and just how welcome it felt. Like, I've been to like rock concerts and like things like that in the past, and none of them ever made me feel the same as like an EDM show did. Like, it just felt like so much more freeing. Like, no one cares about how you look or what you're wearing or anything really like that. They're just there for the vibes, and that's it. And it was really interesting to me. And so that was back in like 2016 was my first event. Yes. I gotta think about that for a second. And then after that, in like 2017, I went to like a couple more shows. I went to maybe about like 4 or 5, which was pretty fun. And I started to get into more of like the fashion side of EDM and kind of like, what can I do to like put together my outfits more? Because at that point I was like, no one cares like what I wear, and I can dress as like outlandishly as I want and like not feel judged, which was really exciting for me because, I mean, growing up as a girl, you're constantly judged for what you wear. Like, the amount of times I'd be dress coded in school because I was wearing a tank top is stupid, or my shorts were too short even though they came down to my fingertips, kind of thing. So, and that was like a really nice feeling because I was finally like, well, no one's going to dress code me now because I can wear what I want and I can put a chain on my body and people are going to think it's cool.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun. But I only started to go like to a lot more events, I would say in like 2019 is when it kind of picked up. Like I was trying to go to an event at least once a month, even if it was just a smaller show. So while it may not have been a really big event every single month, I was at least going to like the smaller EDM shows as much as I could because I just wanted to continue to feel a part of the scene, which was really fun for me. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to post pictures about every single little show that I go to, but it was still really, really fun. And I was enjoying myself. And then in 2020 here was when I was supposed to do a bunch of really big festivals and then they all got canceled. So, which is fine. It's totally fine. I understand. But, you know, that's kind of exciting to like save up for like next year and then 2021 and just be able to go to so many more events, especially like the larger ones, and be able to travel more. Because, I mean, the farthest that I traveled for one was Shambhala. And then
Shambhala's huge, though. I heard
Shambhala's huge.
Shambhala is
Like,
an amazing festival. So you've gotten at least to attend that. Tell me about that festival.
that one, I had planned it with my friend at the time, maybe like 6 months in advance, like 7 months in advance. Like I bought my ticket and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to this. It's like a week long. And I thought that I'd be ready for it because I mean, I've done camping festivals in the past. And I used to camp a lot, like in high school and everything. Like I'm a pretty experienced outdoors person. So I'm like, I can do this. Like it's not a big deal. And we ended up, I was living with my boyfriend on the Sunshine Coast in Canada at the time. And so to get down to my friend who's in White Rock, I had to take a ferry and then bus like 2 hours down to her house. And then from there, we drove 13 hours to Shambhala. And so we arrived at the gates at maybe like 3 a.m.
Wow.
And we did that because at that time of like the morning, there's nobody in line. So you don't have to wait in line for super long. The one thing with Shambhala is that you can show up like a couple days early to the event. So, and each day varies, like you have to pay like an entrance fee, and then like Friday or something there's no entrance fee, or maybe it's Thursday, I don't know. So we showed up on like Tuesday or Wednesday where it was still like $150 per person to get in that early, which is fine. And so like we paid, there was no line. Earlier in the day there was apparently like a 10-hour lineup, so I'm like, this is why we came at this time, because there's no lineup, because who else is driving at 3 a.m. in the morning to go and set up their campsite? Like nobody.
Yeah.
So, but when we got in, like obviously there's still a lot of people, and we met up with our friends who came in earlier than us, and we got our tent set up and everything. And then by the time we got settled, it was like, well, my friend went to bed at like 4 a.m. and then I kept bringing stuff in from the car. So by the time I took a break, it was like 6 a.m.
Wow.
And then I took a nap and then started getting things ready for the day and kind of like exploring around the festival, because it's a big festival. There's like 7 stages. There's like a hidden stage, and then there's a bunch of renegade stages throughout people's campsites. So there's constant music all the time, and there's so many different genres. Like you'll never get sick of it, because if you don't like something, you can just go to one of the other stages, and there's bound to be something playing that you want to listen to. And I mean, the food there is awesome too, which is great. The only thing that kind of was like bunk about last year was that it rained quite a bit, and so it was kind of gross out. But the plus side to that is that since it rained, there was no dust. It was just mud. So, and I would rather have dust than mud, but the mud was kind of nice because at least, you know, you're not breathing in all the dust. So, but it was, I think it's one of those festivals that I always tell people, like, if you need to go to a really big show, go to Shambhala, because it's the most different and like eye-opening festival you'll ever go to. Like the people that go there are a different breed than the people that go to like EDC Las Vegas every single year. Like if you're someone that goes to Shambhala every year, there's something very special about that. Like it's a whole family, like people that's been going to that festival for like 10 years straight because they want to come back every single year and experience it. And so like when I got canceled this year, like a lot of people were really sad, of course, but I think it's still like one of the top festivals that I've ever been to, and one of the festivals that everybody in the world should go to, even if like you're from out of Canada or out of the United States. Like if you're in like Australia, you should go to Shambhala. 100%. Like it's amazing.
I've heard so much about it. I didn't know 7 days, like a whole week. Like that in itself is a whole experience.
Yeah.
Man, it sounds so cool though. I'm pretty down for that. Like that's
Yeah.
my top three right now. Electric Forest, Tomorrowland, of course, and Shambhala. Like I feel like,
Yeah.
and I mean Burning Man's right up there too. I got a lot of festivals I still gotta attend, you know. So
Oh,
we're here. I'm
same.
here in SoCal. I've done most of the Cali, a lot of the West Coast stuff, but I gotta start venturing out even more. And hey, whether it's 2021, whenever it is, there will be a time we'll all be out there. We're all going through this together. And speaking of togetherness, let's bring it back to Plur. When was the first time, do you remember like experiencing like a Plur moment? And what does Plur mean to you?
Um, Let me see. Because of course there's
Memory lane.
like the first like candy trades and everything like that, but I think the first candy trade I made were like with my friends, so it was just kind of like them like introducing me like into the scene and like bringing me into it. But I would say like my first like super like Plur moment was the first year that I went to Lucky, which was in 2018. And I was just kind of wandering around like the event at that point because it was at the Tacoma Dome. They had like a 3-stage setup, and they did pretty good with Lucky. I know we don't like USC anymore. I get it, but they put on a pretty good Lucky show,
Hmm.
and I was very impressed with it. And one of the things that they had set up was this like little like garden kind of setup thing,
Yeah.
leprechaun themed. I don't know what it was. It was really cool though. And there was a Candy Kid meetup there. And I was like, well, I want to go because I have so much candy and I want to trade it with some really cool people. And I ended up sitting down and talking to this guy for like 30 minutes just about like EDM and like who we were excited to see and like talking about like our candy and everything. And we ended up trading cuffs, and he gave me this one. I think I have it back here somewhere. It's this one. And the wings like move on it.
Wow.
And he was, I'm gonna give you this one because you have an amazing heart and you remind me of like an angel, and it was just so nice to talk to you. Like he was like, I've been sitting here waiting, and like trying to trade with people and like trying to talk to people, and you're like really the first person to actually sit down and talk to me. Like I was really excited for this candy meetup, and I'm like, wow, that's stupid. Like you have a lot of candy, my dude. And it was really nice. And then like I would say like that was like my first like super clear moment, and like actually like connecting with somebody and seeing how the EDM community can really like bring people together. And that was really nice, and it felt really great, just to
Yeah,
have that experience and like really like feel the whole vibe and kind of
yeah,
everything.
for sure.
It
For
was
sure.
really
So what does Plur mean to you essentially? Like just by your definition?
by my definition, it's taking care of other people, like not just the people you care about, but taking care of everybody and bringing them together as much as you can. Because, of course, like it's about peace, love, unity, and respect, which we should show to everybody, but it should also be about, need to, with the whole unity thing, like it's really about coming together. And I think that's one of the most important things. Like, if somebody has a different opinion than you, respect it, of course, and still come together. Guidelines border on if the opinion is racist or like harmful to other people. Of course,
Hmm.
that's not welcome in the EDM community, but it's about like growing together and learning from each other and becoming stronger and becoming that community that like everyone wants to be a part of and everyone is a part of already. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. That was beautifully said. And let's talk about that because it's funny. I grew up listening to all different types of music, different genres. I mean, I was skateboarding, I was on my emo
Yeah.
phase, emo rock, and then basketball. I was on my hip hop phase, and then my cousin's like, "Come to this music festival; it's gonna change your life." Now I'm on my EDM phase, but I constantly, and I know most of us, you're gonna listen to different genres of music. There is a difference though, and we're trying to learn how to integrate um, various scenes to coexist right with each other. That's kind of why I do appreciate a Coachella. I do appreciate a festival that has different genres because they're attempting to mix. They're attempting to
Yeah.
say, while I'm on my way from this stage to this stage, because in my head I have a vision of, or my plan is to see this artist who may be just pure EDM and this artist who's pure EDM. but on the way there, I hear a roar of the crowd, and it's for some hip hop artist. And now I'm like, man, this wasn't in my plan, but I want to go check that out. I think there's something really beautiful there. At the same time, though, bringing Plur back into it, that's where, you know, the different styles of different, you know, festival goers, I think we're still working on that and being able to all encompass and understand, like, man, I might be a pure hip hop head, but I could still be Plur. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I can go check out hip hop and be Plur and be accepted, or vice versa. So I think that's still kind of going on. And what are your
It's
kind of thoughts on that?
like, I think that's something that needs a lot of work because, I mean, of course, like when you go to a different show, you're going to get a different group of people. I personally don't think Plur should be exclusive to the EDM community. I think it's something that should be extended to everybody, especially with concert goers. I've been to like multi-genre events, and the first one that I went to was like the crowd there and the people were pretty good. It was Bumbershoot in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And while it was kind of a really poorly put together festival, I would say that the people that went there were really like non-judgmental and really nice. But then again, it could just be because it was in Seattle, and there's a lot of weird people in Seattle, especially if you're going to a festival with this huge mix of artists. But the other show that I went to that was kind of a mixed genre festival was Faded in the Park, which is in Canada, and it's an EDM and it's a rap festival. And the problem that I see with a lot of like rap festivals and people who go to see like rap artists or just like hip hop artists in general is that the crowd can be a little bit more like aggressive and like not as nice. Like, you know, of course you're going to have people at like EDM shows like really wanting to get up to the rail and like fight for the rail, but you see it's something more prevalent in like rap shows, and that's where I've had the most problem at events. It was at Faded, like just being like I was like touched by some dude there who was like trying to like grab onto me, and he was headed over to the rap stage. So I'm like, well, I know you're not part of like this whole EDM stage here. Like even though they separated the stages, of course, like people are still gonna merge. But it was kind of like a disturbing experience. Of course, like I had my friends there to protect me, which was amazing. But and like the rest of the people around the crowd, like they hated this guy. They booed him away. It was fantastic. But you know, I think with I would just say like specifically like with rap music, it's kind of hard to bring it into these people's minds that like we're all here to see this artist. Like we all want to have fun and dance around. Like there's no reason to like hurt another person to get forward more or push past people in a crowd. And yeah, again, you see it in EDM communities and like at EDM shows and whatnot, but it's not as prevalent. I would say like whenever I would kind of go over and meander over to like see what was happening at the rap crowd, it's like there's no way to like, kind of get through it, like unless you are aggressive because people are so mean to you. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Like maybe I wanted to go see like this girl who's performing on this stage, and I feel like I can't because I don't feel welcome in that space. And it was just like it's a weird vibe. It's a really weird vibe that I found. Like it's a completely different vibe than the EDM community has, and like never really experienced that at an EDM show where I feel like I can't like walk through a crowd. Like people are normally like pretty nice about it. They're like, oh, like if you need to get through, you can get through. Like, you know, you're saying excuse me and, you know, not pushing me out of the way, like go ahead. But at a rap show, people like tell you to like F off. And I'm like, okay, maybe I will.
Yeah, honestly, I've seen it happen at both. You know, it's going to be more prevalent because the culture, right? The peace, love, unity, and respect in the EDM community. The hip hop scene, it's be hard. It's I put up with this. It's this, and honestly, some of it is just a way of dealing with so much hardship, right? But the way that we're going to be able to move forward, and it's not going to happen overnight, is by saying, and some artists, I mean, you know, RIP Juice WRLD, RIP some of these artists, because they were the ones to say, yeah, I've grown up in these wicked environments, and I feel this way. I feel like I have PTSD, I have trauma, I have this. And I think one of the things is acknowledging that. And that's why I'm actually challenging the EDM community to say, you know what, like we need to be a little more empathetic in regards to, man, it is possible for Plur to transition over. Because you'll see the same thing happen at not to that degree, I would definitely say that, but I've seen where it's like, hey, like you said, fighting over the rail, or I don't know, rave drama, right? Because everyone's, you know, vibing but most importantly, understanding like how you said, break it down to the basic science of things of being human and treating somebody else how you'd like to be treated, right? Because I've been and one thing I'm saying, I've been at festivals where people accidentally bump into you, or I don't know, maybe it's accident or not, but they're getting through you and they're not saying excuse me. And one of the things, as well as us throwing away our trash, hey guys, let's make sure to say excuse me when we pass by somebody. If you accidentally nudge them and you didn't mean to, but hey, just say sorry. Let's keep that going, because we've seen those trains of people that go through the crowd, and it's like 20 people, and at that point they're just holding on. But there's a way to also go about that by saying like, excuse us guys, like, hey guys, thanks for letting us go through, little things like that. And it really doesn't take that much more effort, that much more of an effort. And on the other side of things, so it's something that we're inching our way through it, and I hope that with everything going on right now, just globally, that we're able to, when we go back to festivals, we can push more love out, right, and be happy and not be oh, I'm here, that, because festivals are taken away from us right now. When things are taken away, you got to learn how to be more appreciative of them, so when they come back. So it's interesting. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that incident where somebody's putting their hands on you. The truth is, I'm sure this happens to a lot of females, more so in the EDM and festival culture. So let's talk about that, which might not be the most comfortable conversation, but I feel that we need to talk about these things so that we can do things about them, so that they aren't happening as much, and eventually aren't happening at all.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important to talk about, and like, I don't think it's just a problem solely focused on like men of EDM. Like, I think it's also a problem with like women in EDM too, because it is something that happens to both people, because women will look at guys at like a show and be like, oh, like he must be into this, like he's at the show, and they carry that same mindset as like the guys who are like, oh, like she's at the show, like she must already be into this kind of thing. And I don't think that's a healthy thing at all. Like, what some of the things that I've tried to preach as much as I can is that, like, consent is so important, and you need to know your boundaries with another person. And like, I've even been touched by girls at festivals, and while of course most of them think that it's quite innocent, like, I'll be up on like my boyfriend's shoulders and I'll have some girl that I don't know like slapping my butt, and I'm like, well, that makes me feel really uncomfortable because I don't know you. Like, 2, I can't even see you, and 3, like, why are you touching me? Like, you don't need to go about and do that. And it's always more polite and more kind to ask and just like be appreciative about somebody's body rather than objectify them, which I think is a fine line that a lot of people need to realize. Everybody should have their personal space at a festival, and of course, like in a crowd, you're like very condensed, but personal space, and the fact being that like, you don't need to touch somebody, inappropriately or in a way that could make them feel uncomfortable, nor should somebody going to a festival expect to be touched that way. And it's a big comment that I've gotten from a lot, especially of people like over on TikTok, because I mean, raves on TikTok is a very new thing, and people are like, whoa, this is a thing. Whoa, like you're dressed like that. Like, whoa, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people will be like, well, if you go to a show like that, you should expect to be touched like that. And it's like, well, no, we shouldn't, because, no one has rights to your body regardless of what you wear. And you're going to get harassed regardless of what you wear. I've been harassed in a onesie, and it's like completely shapeless, and it still happens. And that's a big part where like Plur comes in with just the whole respect factor. Like, you need to respect other people and respect their boundaries, and understand that not everybody's okay with what you're doing. And it's a lot of little things that I feel is kind of like a learning curve. Like, one of the things that I always try to tell people, like, if you're moving through a crowd, don't touch somebody's waist, a guy or a girl. Don't do it. It's weird. Why? Because it's a little bit more sexual than like tapping somebody's shoulders and just saying like, hey, I have to get back, like past you really quickly. It's totally fine. But if you're moving somebody by their waist, it's kind of like, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to be touched there by anybody that's not somebody that I know and I love and I trust, which is like my boyfriend or like one of my close girlfriends who are just like giving me like a side hug or something. I don't know. Like that's much more of a kind of contact that like a lot of people don't like. And I see the argument against that, people being like, well, like that's just how, like that's just polite, is to touch like a girl's lower back when you're going by her. And I'm like, those are standards set from like the 1960s, man. Like we are not in the 1960s anymore, and we respect women, and we respect men. Like you don't need to touch them there. Like if I'm going through a crowd and like I'm walking out of it and people are facing me, I'm not going to touch the guy on his chest and be like, oh, excuse me. Like that's weird. Yeah. I'm going to touch his arm and be like, sorry, I have to get by you. So he's not uncomfortable with the way I'm touching him, and he's not, you know, taking it in a way that I don't want him to take it, you know?
Exactly.
It's like, it's about that whole respect thing. And it's like, it's not, that's something that's really not hard to do. It's not, you know, and same thing with like asking for consent. Like if you think somebody like looks like really good, and or, you know, for example, like you see a girl's butt and you're like, wow, she's got a really nice butt. Like I want to go touch it. Just because it's out doesn't mean like you have all rights to go and touch it. You can go ask her and see if she'll let you. That's totally fine. I've been asked that by another girl, and I was like, go right ahead. Thank you for asking. You can totally touch my butt. Like, I'm very flattered that you think it's great. And she was like, cool. And she touched it, and she's like, great, that was awesome. I'm like, cool. And she's like, have a good night. I said, you too. And that was it. And it was the easiest thing. And it was nice, and it was respectful, and it was like comforting to have an experience like that. And, you know, it makes the EDM space feel a lot more safer.
Exactly.
Than, you know, not, that was a big rant.
Hey, but it's true. I mean, it's super important. So thanks for sharing that, because we want the EDM space to be and feel safer, you know? And we even said that with Festiie. We're like, look, we're making a device that keeps you and your friends, it allows you to find each other without cell phone service, without Wi-Fi, without data. Yeah. That doesn't mean you're going to be safer. It's giving you the opportunity, but you're still going to have to put in the legwork. Make sure that I'm taking care of my body. Make sure I'm hydrated. Make sure that I'm doing, you know, the right things. And same thing with like going to events. And you're saying it as simple as just reaching out, just speaking a few kind words. And if the person's feeling that energy, you're good. You know, if you accidentally nudge somebody, bump shoulders, sorry. But yeah, there's no open invitation to do certain things because you're making assumptions in your head. And let's all not forget about that, because as we mentioned, once we're back at festivals, let's kind of hold ourselves to that little higher standard in regards to respecting each other as human beings. So,
you know, and I think another thing too, sorry, really quickly, is that like, I know some people will also say like, well, you're at a show, you know, where, you know, EDM, a lot of people do choose to like partake in like drugs and all of that fun stuff. And people are like, well, if you know, people are around you taking that, like you just have to expect them to do that. Like, you know, they don't have control over it. And that's where I kind of get like, well, again, I know with Plur, like some people will say like, well, there's a second R, which is responsibility, which is something that I think just ties into Plur entirely in itself, without it having to be there. But it's being responsible with yourself. Like if you know that after 6 shots, you turn into somebody that just starts grabbing at people through a crowd, maybe don't do that. Like that's where the responsibility comes in for you, but also the respect for yourself. Like, why would you want to be a person who would get so drunk or, you know, so high on something that you lose control over yourself, where you could potentially harm another person, but even more so, you could potentially harm yourself. And it's like, that's not safe at all for you or for the people around you. And it's like, also, like, why would you want to get messed up to that point? And why should that even be an excuse? Because it's not. Like, I've never used, you know, back when I like used to like drink a lot, especially in university, I never used that as an excuse for any of my actions, because they're still my actions, you know. If I'm gonna like do something stupid, like if I break a cup, I'm not gonna be like, oh well, I was drunk, so like I shouldn't take responsibility for it because you know, I was drunk when I did it. It's not like, it is still, I still broke it. It's still an action that I made myself. And maybe I shouldn't get into that mindset where I can't control, or I feel like I don't have any control of my own actions, because it's still something that you like decided to do, even though you weren't in a good state to do it.
Yep. Yeah. The second R, she just said it, the second R of Plur at the end is responsibility. So be responsible, because even if, oh, I have Rave fam, you know, you do have Rave fam, and shouts out to the Rave fam, and shouts out to them looking after you, but you're still the main person who's in control or who's making those decisions. So that's very important. And you know what? We had to dive into that. We had to speak about it. It's very, very critical of and essential for us to talk about. Now, we're going to go back to the sunshine side of things. And I see right above you, yeah, I see right above you, you have a bunch of, I don't know, I saw cuffs. Are those all cuffs? What we got going on over there?
So it starts over on this end. These are all like my sunflower cuffs that I have. And then it kind of delves overall into like this end too. So they're all like pretty decently sized. This isn't even all of them, believe it or not. There's under my bed, and there's a bunch of singles under my bed too. I'm still trying to figure out how to organize those in a way. But like I like to see everything. Because I like to see all of the memories that I have from all of like the people who like I've traded with. Because it's nice to be able to look at them and be like, oh yeah, I remember how I got that one, or like I know what event I got this one from. Like, you know, this one was from Lucky. This one is like a big, like, I don't know if you can see it. It's like a Pokemon card. And I traded that at my first Paradiso with this like Charmander cuff that I made, and it was really cool. Like I traded this one at like my second Paradiso, and it's so cool. This guy put like a little banana under it. It's amazing. It's cool. Like I know, and I maybe don't know all the names of the people that gave these to me, but I know all of the memories like surrounding them, and that's what makes them like super special and like super like awesome, because it's like a reminder every day, like this is still here. Like Raves are still here. I can still see them. Like
exactly.
And like be reminded of all like the good times of them, which I think is like important. Like I mean, of course, everyone's had their bad times at raves and everything, but you know what's nice with candy is that like that's a physical reminder of a really good memory that you had.
Yeah.
And you made a connection with somebody, whether you still talk to them or whether you're still friends with them or not. You still made that connection with them.
Yep. It's spiritual souvenir, you know. It's
yeah, exactly.
It keeps it going, and I love how you have it out so you can look at it and just be reminded, because right now that's what we have. We have the memories. We can close our eyes, be at the festival, we can listen to music, we can dress up, you know, keep that energy. And then you've also been practicing more shuffling, I believe.
Yeah.
How's that been going? Because I saw your Instagram. I think it was a highlight. I think it was Instagram, and you were basically, I think you were teaching. You were like, hey, I'm going to show you some basic moves. And I really like that, giving back. So talk about shuffling, and then talk about how you're just kind of giving back to the culture. And it just might be in forms of content like that.
Well, with shuffling, I've wanted to learn how to shuffle for a really long time. And whenever I'd go to festivals is like when I would practice and like shuffle. But like whenever I look at videos of myself at festival shuffling, I was always like really disappointed because I'm like, I suck. Like I'm so bad. I've always wanted to post a video of me like shuffling at a festival. So I would always get like my boyfriend to take them of me. And I'm like, these are all like so bad. Like, why am I not good at this? And then in like January of this year, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not good at it because I don't practice it like outside of any of the shows that I go to. So I'm maybe getting like, I used to get practicing like maybe once a month, and now it's something that I try to do at least every other day or every couple of days, depending on like what my schedule is like. Like if I'm working, obviously I'm not gonna be able to like get it in kind of thing. But if I'm not working, then it's like, why not go outside and practice for like an hour? Like I get to listen to some of my favorite music and then also dance around and get better at something. So a big reason why I posted that highlight is because I was teaching my boyfriend how to shuffle, and I put together this like really simple routine for him where it's like you get a little bit of each of the move and how they kind of correlate into each other. And it was a very kind of like beginner kind of sequence that I feel like anybody could master and get into, alongside just like, you know, even like mini tutorials that I've posted onto my TikTok, which I need to post more because they're very fun to make. But it's just like, it's been getting into more of like practicing with it. And I think what really helped me with my shuffling is that I did a like 1 month challenge in the beginning or like throughout January, and it's like every day you just worked on a different move. And after that month, because it was like every day of practice, even if it was only for 30 minutes, I saw a really big improvement, because it was like, oh, I didn't realize like I can also do this move, or, you know, this move would go good with this move. Like, you know, we're practicing cowtails today, and like, I don't know how to do a cowtail. So it's like watching videos and just like drilling the move for literally 20 minutes until I get that muscle memory. and then slowly incorporating it into my own shuffling, which is really nice. So I put that highlight up there just because I'm like, well, if somebody else wants to learn and they want something really simple to go over, like this is really like something really nice that you can look at, where you can get, you know, a little bit of an introduction, or even if you're like kind of like, you know how to shuffle, but you want to learn how to like moves like integrate in between with each other. I think that's really nice too. And it was a really nice way to kind of give back to the community, especially during like a time like this where there's like not really much you can do. And it's kind of like a free way to get like shuffle lessons, of course, rather than, you know, obviously you can look stuff up on the internet, but it was nice. And like giving back to the community, especially right now, is something that like I always tried to do. Even like when festivals were happening, like it was like trying to figure out like how I can give back to people for being a part of the community. And right now it's mostly focused on like making content, whether it is like shuffling content or whether it's like mainly right now it's posting about like looks and everything and like different rave looks I'm putting together, so that when festivals do come back, like here's some really awesome like pages of just inspiration you can look at, like whatever vibe you're feeling, like here's like a base for you. Like if you want to copy it, do the exact same thing. I would love a tag so I can see it and see how beautiful you look too, because that shit makes me feel really good inside. Right. Or like maybe you just want something like to look at, like, oh, like I really like how she made this harness work with another harness, and that's so cool to me. I want to put together two harnesses like that too. Like I think that's awesome, because with how raves are evolving, like the fashion scene's evolving too. There's so many new styles and trends coming out that I think it's really important to kind of like find a way to integrate all of those together. Like I love how rave fashion has grown. Like, I mean, I love the fluffy and tutu era, but I would never wear one myself. And I like seeing where things are going now, especially with like all the different styles. Like you can cover up more if you want to, or you can be more revealing if you want to. It doesn't matter, but you can still look good any sort of way. And I think that's really awesome. And like one of the other things that I've been trying to do to give back to the community is like, while raves were still happening, I would braid hair at festivals. Because I mean, like it's hard to keep up with your hair at a festival. I mean, like I wear extensions, so I can just take these out and like put my hair in a bun and not have to worry about it. But you know, for some girls have like really long hair like I do, and they're like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with my hair? Like it's everywhere. Or maybe you do have short hair and you're like, well, I don't know how to style it. It's like, well, let's do some braids on you. And so it was a way like I could give back to the community, but then also like pay for my ticket without having to like worry about like spending too much money, because I try to be very like save all the time. So that was kind of a way for me to be able to give back, and then, you know, extra money like goes towards like giveaways or something that I'm hosting, which is always really fun. But I've been trying to post like more tutorials on like how to braid your hair, or if like you're looking to do it, like now's a really good time to practice, because it's not a particularly hard skill to learn. The only thing is that like I know with like some braids that you can do on yourself, especially like as like a white person, like there are styles that like I will refuse to do on people unless they're like a person of color. Like box braids on a white girl, we're in 2020. That's not happening. Nor do I have the knowledge to do one. Yes, I do, but I'm not going to do it on a white lady, because your hair is not, it's going to fall out. First of all, and it looks like shit. Like, you look ugly, and I don't mean that in like, okay, I mean that in a mean way. I mean that in a mean way. Like same thing with like the limit that I'll do on someone's head for braids is like 4 braids. I don't really like to do more than 4 braids on somebody's head. I've been told by like some of like my POC friends, and especially like my Black friends, they're like, you can do like 6, but you just have to make sure it's not like brinking on the line of like a cornrow or something. And I'm like, see, I can't as like a white person distinguish that line as clearly as you guys. I'm not gonna do it. And they're like, it's fine, you don't have to, but we're just saying you can do this if you want. And I'm like, I don't want to, I don't feel comfortable with it. And so it's like, that's also kind of a nice thing though, because I like to educate people on that. And it's nice to kind of bring that awareness. Like one of the first braiding TikToks that I posted to my account, it got a lot of traction, and a lot of people in the comments, all of them were white people, were like, this is cultural appropriation. You can't put 2 Dutch braids on your head with color in it. Like this is wrong. But then all of the Black women who were commenting on it were like, stop. Like, you're not using the right gel. You need a different comb and get some better hair because it looks crusty, and you're doing a good job, but you can do so much better. And then they'd be like, also, this isn't cultural appropriation. This is more so appreciation. And we really respect that. And we really respect you, you know, kind of teaching that more so, and not doing something that is an appropriative style. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm scared now. Like, I'm like, and I'm always trying my best to do that. Like, especially like, you know, in 2020, like, we're learning a lot more about like what is, you know, culturally appropriative, and then what's also appreciative. And I think it's like really important to bring it into the festival like community. Like, even with like something like a kimono, you know, a lot of people are like, that's culturally insensitive to say. And it's something that I've said a lot in the past, is like, oh, like a festival kimono, when we should really be referring to it as like a wrap, or like a festival duster or something like that, because we're taking from Asian culture. And that's like, have you seen a good kimono? Because it doesn't look like some sequin shit that you wear to a festival at all. It doesn't. It looks completely different. So maybe we shouldn't call it that. And then, of course, like, there's also like certain styles of face gems that like I don't really like to wear. Like, if it's like just a face gem like in the center of my forehead, I don't like to wear that, because while it's not necessarily a bindi, you know, it could represent that in a way. So I'd prefer like something that's fully across my forehead, or much so like just like around like the outsides of my eyes, because then it's not necessarily focused just like right on this spot in my face, because I think that's a little bit like pushing it. And I think it's something that the EDM community is like growing and learning from.
Exactly.
And I think there's fine lines between, like, a lot of people obviously have different opinions about a lot of things, but I don't think it's fair, like, as like somebody who's white, to have an opinion on like, well, this isn't culturally appropriative because I said so. This is most of the stuff that I've heard and I've learned from people of color, who will, like, I'll ask them about it, like, you know, is this okay? And they'll tell me either, yeah, it's fine, or be like, maybe no. You know?
See, the cool part is, thanks for sharing that. That was good stuff. The cool part is, you know, you're not taking offense to it, you know, where someone might be like, oh, well, I didn't know, so don't be mad, don't be upset at me. You're more of like, oh, okay, like, I'm taking that in. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for, you know, educating me in that regard. And I want to be respectful moving forward. And I appreciate you. And hey, maybe we can even link up and you can give me some more tips. And then so that I can share those tips the proper way, as opposed to getting, you know, defensive and finding reasons to, you know, that's really cool. I like that you own up to that part. And you are respectful and you are willing to learn, and you're it sounds like you're even very coachable. So and then you pass that on to the people that you're teaching. How did you, last question, we'll just get back to the name, your SUNFLOWERRAVER. How did the name come about?
Well, okay, the name came about because it came from my last boyfriend, Mark, and he would always call me his sunflower, and so I would always call him my bee. And we met at Lucky in 2018 too, and so like that was really nice, and we got to like connect, and like that's like where we like fell in love and everything. It was like love at first sight. We started dating like literally a few days afterwards, and like planned our wedding 10 days after we met. Like, it was crazy. But he would always call me his sunflower. And so when we were together, I was like, you know, I want to make like a rave profile and start posting more about like rave things that I'm doing. And he's like, well, we're going to go to Paradiso in June, so that's a great place to start it. And I was like, well, what should I call it? And he's like, well, you're a rave girl and you're my sunflower. So he's like, call it SUNFLOWERRAVER. And so that's how it came to be, was from him. And so what's nice is like, because he passed away in 2018, which was like really crazy. I know a lot of people will kind of have different opinions about love, but we were together for 4 months, and it was the best 4 months of my life. Like, when you fall in love with somebody and you know they're the one, I can't explain that feeling to anybody, like, at all. The second that you look at somebody and you see them and you're like, this is my person, and you know, it's the most insane feeling. Like, when I first saw Mark, the first things that I wanted to tell him was that I loved him and that I missed him, and where had he been, even though at that point I didn't know his name and I didn't know who he was, but I knew that he was my person. I believe in soulmates across like lifetimes. And so I feel like I knew him from a separate lifetime. And it was weird because that was something he agreed with me on too. Like months after we were together, he had brought it up to me. He was like, did you feel that way when like we met each other? Because I knew you. And I don't know how to describe that. And I'm like, no, I do. I know exactly what you're saying because I knew you too. And it was weird. And like losing him was probably like the hardest part on my life. And I took quite a big break off of like social media and just like posting and like, you know, for a while because you know, it was sad. I was grieving. But it's nice to be able to, a big reason why I still go to raves now is because I feel that connection with him when I go to events, and having my name be something that he came up with and that's a part of him is like so important to me, because it's why I feel so cared for in that community is because of him, and I feel so safe there is because of him. And it was like, so that's where the name came from. That's why I have all these sunflower cuffs. Like these two right at the end were cuffs that I made for me and him, and we'd always wear them to festivals together because one says you are my sunshine and the other one says my only sunshine. So we would wear matching cuffs. It was really, it's very, very cheesy stuff, but like
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, like, that's why it's like my name, and that's why it's like so like important to me, and like why I take such like a special kind of vibe with the whole like sunflower thing is because it you know, Mark has such a special place in my heart. And even though it's been like just over like 2 years since he passed away, it's like still like so special to me, and it's nice to like feel that specialness. Like when I went to Lucky in 2019, what Mark does when he wants to connect with me, which again, this might sound crazy to some people who aren't like spiritual or anything, but he'll leave me quarters when he's thinking of me, and they will literally pop up out of nowhere. Like when I moved to my new house in Vancouver, I put my mattress in the room, and then I left and I came back and there was a quarter in the middle of it. And I knew it wasn't there before because I threw the mattress into the room and there was nothing else in the room. And so like I knew it was him. And when I went to Lucky the next year, in the same exact spot that we met, there was a quarter on the ground with sunflowers on it. And it's like, well, that's not a coincidence at all. No one dropped this out of nowhere. And I knew it was from him. And it's like, you know, I find quarters whenever I go to festivals, which is always really comforting. And it's nice, you know, to know that he's still there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it comes from.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for opening up, sharing. I mean, even before I asked that question, I was already going to say, hey, you have a very, in a positive way, a very strong energy. It's like, hey, like there's, you know, there's something about you that's very, and then wow, then you're very strong. So super appreciate you. This episode, I appreciate episodes like this one because we really wanted to confront and get to the truth about a lot of things, put them on the table, talk about them, open up. As you mentioned, person of color, person not of color, talking about things, you know, and
your opinion matters more than mine does on a lot of things.
Hey, well, like when you come on my platform, though, you know, and this is when I say that, I say it's this platform is for everyone. I want to talk. Let's talk, you know, because if I can give you some clarification on certain things that you may have questions about, and then vice versa, and then we can find ways. Oh, wow, that makes sense. As I mentioned before, you know, shouldn't have to go home and then be like, all right, I don't have to. Oh, I'm not colored anymore. I'm this. No, that shouldn't even have to cross my mind. And the more that we have these conversations, speak about things, the community in general, festival community, embracing, non-judgmental zone, all that. I mean, the world is a festival, so we gotta put that peace, love, unity, and respect out there. If someone's moved by this, how can we find you on social media? What are your handles?
I am at SUNFLOWERRAVER on everything. I'm most active on my Instagram and most active on my TikTok until the orange racist pumpkin decides to take it down. But I do have a Twitter, and I also have a YouTube as well, which are all at SUNFLOWERRAVER. I don't post to either of those as much. It's only occasionally. So I would say Instagram's probably the best platform to keep up with me on. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you. You are officially Festiie fam. And yeah, we're going to have to do this again. We have to do it again. So I'll touch base with you soon. We'll line it up again. But for everyone out there, take care. Keep that positive vibe going and share that love with everyone, and respect and responsibility. It's our responsibility. All right. Desmond Beristain, Sunflower Raver, Festiie Files, signing out.